Welcome to the Positive Productivity Podcast, episode number 80.
Welcome to Positive Productivity Podcast, where we empower our audience to achieve and appreciate personal and professional success, especially in the face of adversity. Listen in as our guests reveal their stories of challenges and hurdles and how they overcame defeat and became triumphant in their endeavors. Let's get motivated and move forward with your host, Kim Sutton.
Welcome back to another episode of Positive Productivity. This is your host, Kim Sutton. And today I am thrilled to be bringing on Wynne Charles, host of Butterflies of Wisdom podcast and author. Wynne, thank you so much for joining me here.
And thank you.
You are very welcome. You are very welcome. You have such an inspirational story, and I would love for you to share it with the audience.
Well, so I hope. And I would love to share my story with your audience too. I actually listen to your podcast. It's one of my favorite podcasts, especially with the blue construction button on, the blue wheel on it. And so it's one of my favorite podcasts to listen to. And I hope you don't mind the plug I throw in here. If you guys want to go listen back to an episode that Kim did with Kate Erickson, that was one of my favorite episodes of your podcast. So if you guys want to go back in your iTunes feed or your iHeart Radio feed and listen to that episode was phenomenally done by Kim. But
you're so awesome. I'm just going to share that was episode number 22 with Kate Erickson. Thank you for a plug. You're supposed to be plugging yourself, so.
Yeah, but getting back to my plug is this. I was born with cerebral palsy. Cerebral palsy is a burst injury, lack of oxygen to the brain. I have since not let that disability stop me. I have since done a Kona Ironman, ex-triathlete. I am also a podcast host. And for me, I have decided that podcasting is the best thing since sliced bread, because as Kim knows, and as all the podcasting community knows, we can connect with people all over the world. And I have my map lighting up in Africa and the Bahamas in every which way. So I think people want to learn about business and they want to learn about disabilities as well.
You are such an inspiration. And I've been struggling because I'm just trying to get the first word of my book written. Well, yeah, the first word, much like the first sentence and first page. And here you are, a triathlete, an author, a podcast host and we talked about this pre-show because we know that I'm not going to say it properly, but cerebral palsy, because you say it different. Cerebral palsy. And you're just blowing it away. But I love how you said you've got your map lighting up. I don't know if you saw it. And listeners, anything that we talk about in this episode, you can find in the show notes at thekimsutton.com/PP080 for episode 80. But just before we're recording this episode, I was amazed to have a mention on Twitter from somebody in France who had seen the episode. So I'm just going to give a shout out to Frederick. Thank you so much. That absolutely made my day and weekend. But isn't it amazing how people are listening and mentioning you from all over the globe?
Yes. And liking my tweets and listening to the podcast. And I'm getting 100 downloads per episode to about 600 downloads per episode. Of course, I want more, as we all do. But patience.
And some more if you have kids.
Oh, yes. And some more if you have kids. Throw that in there.
Or cats.
Or cats.
Yes.
And like to walk across your keyboard. Or a dog that likes to walk in the middle of the podcast.
So you wrote your autobiography or your biography. No, I guess it would be an autobiography since you wrote it.
Yes.
And in our pre-chat, you were talking about how you're going to be writing a second. But tell me about your own journey as an entrepreneur and fill the listeners in. I would love to hear this, and I know you do too.
I am a solo entrepreneur. I also teach on the side. I'm a preschool teacher on the side, but slowly and surely I'm walking away from education because I can't really have a 9-to-5 job not because of my disability, although that's part of it. It's because of my brain. It's because I want to be creative. So if I was stuck behind a desk job all day, of course, it would have to modify the desk job for me. And I tried a desk job for 1 year, and I'm like, enough with this. And this was in the office at Country Day where I worked. And I'm like, enough with the secretarial job here because I need to be creative. I need to be stimulated just like anyone else would. And I hated that portion of that job because I'm like sitting in a chair with my back doesn't help. And then just doing repetitious stuff doesn't help.
Oh, absolutely. And I know because we were talking about this also pre-show, you have an assistant, and I'm actually thrilled to be bringing my assistant back in the next week. But anytime I'm looking for a team member, I always ask the person that I'm speaking to, what are your favorite things to do? Because I don't care if you're working at a desk job for somebody else or if you're working for yourself. If you're not stimulated and if you're not excited and passionate about what you're doing, you're never going to get peak performance.
No, and you'll have the ER attitude where it comes from, whereas Winnie the Pooh was the bright light. And it's like, you're never going to get peak performance if it doesn't bring you joy. And my assistant said this publicly. We were out someplace and someone said to all of us, what brings you joy? And I didn't realize this. Well, she types up. She also has cerebral palsy, and she also has a book to help. So if you guys go look on Amazon for that book under Danielle Coulter, you'll find that book as well. And she goes, well, what brings me joy is working out. And at the end, she goes, what brings me joy is helping out with Wynn's podcast. And I didn't tell her to make me blush and say that. She said that on her own.
Are you sure you didn't slip her a 5 or something?
No, I did not. And the person just looked at her and looked at me and carried on. And I'm like, nope, I did not tell her to say that because I'm like, wow, helping me brings you joy because she's not only helping me with the podcast, which is a huge endeavor in itself, she's helping teach other people about disabilities behind the scenes.
That is so powerful. I love it. And I love it from various aspects. Number one, because you have somebody on your team who is clearly vested in your success.
Yes.
And that's what we all dream to have. So I actually have to give a shout out to Jennifer. Can't wait to have you back because Jennifer is the same way, totally vested.
Yeah.
And then number two, just sharing knowledge and education about disabilities is so powerful because unfortunately, I mean, we're coming from two different sides here. My disability is chronic idea disorder. That's a joke, but
yes,
I mean, that's the worst that I've really had to face besides anxiety. And here, I mean, you are coming in from the complete other side where, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm probably making assumptions, but you've really had to prove that you are no different outside of maybe a few minor impairments. I mean, you have every single capability to do anything that anybody else can.
I have had to prove that, and I've come to the decision that physical therapists and doctors may study CP they study cerebral palsy in a medical textbook, but then they may work with the occasional kid with cerebral palsy because cerebral palsy is a childhood injury, but they don't necessarily see that cerebral palsy is different in every case. And especially when it comes to adults, I gave someone my goals yesterday, and they said, well, that may be a short-term goal. We can't necessarily help you with that. And I'm like, I'm going to help myself, and you guys help me with it. And so they got all mad at me because I don't think they understood that I want this goal and I want it done.
Would you mind sharing your goal?
Well,
or is it? I would totally understand if it's private.
I would not at all. I'll share my goal. 10 years ago, I had major back surgery for scoliosis, and my goal is, ever since that I've been on a walker, and my goal now is to get back to where I was pre-surgery 10 years ago. And I'm actually having, supposedly, another back surgery to take all the metal out of my back because I want to be walking in bed again.
Wow. So is that your goal? Is the surgery?
The surgery just will help with my goal. My goal is to get off assistive devices completely.
That's tremendous.
And so all the surgery is going to do is help with my goal.
Right.
But as I said, I don't think a lot of doctors know about this disability that affects millions and millions of babies and millions of kids, because each case is different.
So what causes CP, Wynn?
CP is lack of oxygen to the brain. And
are there any specific causes of the lack to the brain?
No, it can be a stroke. It could be having the umbilical cord wrapped around your neck. It could be, I have a friend who's a nonverbal who was born able-bodied and choked on a piece of popcorn at age 2. His mom saying no scared him enough so that he aspirated on a piece of popcorn and got CP.
Oh, so I didn't realize that you could develop it after birth.
Yes, because it's a childhood disease, but with lack of oxygen to the brain.
Okay. Look, you learn something new every day on positive productivity.
Well, yeah, you do. Yeah, you do.
So tell me about a typical day in the life of Wynn.
Oh, a typical day in the life
Is there such thing as a typical day? Because I know I don't really have a typical day, just to be brutally honest.
No, the only thing that's typical about my days nowadays is I need help from aides that come to my house to assist me in getting dressed. But that's the only thing typical about my day. I am lucky enough to be holding a job, 9 to noon job, which, as I said at the top of this show, it's teaching. But people think, oh, Wynn can't do it because of her disability. No, Wynn can't do it because of her psyche. That it has nothing to do with my disability.
That is so powerful. That's a tweetable right there, Wynn. It really, I mean, it's almost like other people are disabling themselves by putting that into their own head.
And just to get back to the podcasting realm for a couple seconds, there are only 5 podcasters with disabilities, and my co-host is one of them.
Really?
Yeah. 5 podcasters worldwide have 5 podcasters that I know of worldwide have disabilities, and 2 of them have cerebral palsy.
Is Max Ivy on your list?
Max Ivy was on my list, although I tried to interview him way back when, but he decided not to do it. So I don't know if Max Ivy has a podcast. I know he has a blog.
Listeners, you can find Max Ivy at theblindblogger.com. And I do believe he does have a podcast, but it's so true. I mean, I guess I hadn't really thought about only 5 podcasters having disabilities, but it also could be varying depending on what you look at as disabilities.
Yes.
Now, I mean, I think now that I've seen news articles where ADHD is considered a form of disability. I'm not about to get into a debate on the Positive Productivity podcast, but I'm not sure how I feel about that. So
I am not sure how I feel about that either. And this is coming from a educator's perspective. And don't get me started on my educational soapbox when it comes to disabilities. And I could go on and on with you, Kim, but I won't. But I was going to say they can always Google Max Ivy too if we didn't get the name of his blog right.
Absolutely. So can you share the journey that went into writing your book and how you published it?
Yeah, I can. I used Apple's Siri dictation to write my book. I originally used a ghostwriter. Well, when that fell through, I used Apple's Siri dictation. I gave myself a year. I was given the opportunity to attend a leadership workshop, which is no longer in existence. And one of the activities they did with all different types of disabilities is all of us do a vision board, and made all of us in front of 12 people. And when I said I want to write a book, people thought I was nuts because I had just lost my mom to devastating brain aneurysm. And so this was a couple months after losing my mom. I wanted to write a book on cerebral palsy. And so everyone looked at me like I was nuts, including my dad. And so I said, I'm going to do this. They go, okay, we'll put this down on your vision board. And I said, well, I give myself a year. Do you know what? When I went back to that leadership workshop and we had all the reunion party, I was able to say my book is in the editing process, and everyone went gulp. And I said, my book is in the editing process. Look at that. And so the power of determination.
The power of determination. So how long did it? You gave yourself a year. So
I gave myself a year, and it took because now I know what I'm doing. I didn't know what the heck I was doing on this book journey. I didn't know anything about self-publishing. I didn't know anything about editing a book. I didn't know anything about writing a book. So I gave myself a year. I gave now this book coming up, people are starting to edit it now while I'm in the process of writing the book. So if any of your listeners want to help me edit a book, you can contact me and we'll make it work. If any of your listeners who have professional editing degrees, please contact me. I'm looking for an editor right now, although I have people in my network that want to help me. But I gave myself a year. I got myself an editor, and then we edited the book together.
So did you do this book the same way using Siri?
Yeah, I'm doing this book, and it's going to be called The Mosaic of CP. So yes, I'm doing this book, The Mosaic of CP, the same way.
I'm in awe. That's all I can say. And you've inspired. Tonight, I am getting at least my first word down.
Yes. And people don't understand the power of Siri and the power of Dragon dictation. For those of you on the PC side, people don't understand that you can essentially write a book on a phone while you're waiting for your kids at the ski slopes or waiting for your kids at the soccer game. Just sit in the car and get words down. They don't have to be perfect. And then when you go home, you can edit. And that's how I write my book. It's with the power of Siri.
Oh my goodness. When episode number 001 of the Positive Productivity Podcast was actually recorded on my iPhone. Listeners, I will do my very best. Let me try that again. That one's for the blooper reel. I will do my best not to ever record another episode on my iPhone because the quality certainly wasn't there. But if Win is not getting the point across to you, hopefully this will get the point across that you can't let anything hold you back. If you can't get your first episode recorded for your podcast, then do it when you're in the car. If you can't physically write down on paper the first words of your book, then speak them into your phone. There should be nothing that holds you back from pursuing your dreams.
I have a friend who actually has a podcast, Concept Cash Flow, Dr. Amy Kanata, and she is a chiropractor. She does chiropractics. And she moved from, I believe, Baltimore to Phoenix. And that's how she got her books done in a year, perspective. And her books could be found on Amazon and also Dr. Amy Kanata. So that's how she got her books done within a year too, is dictating it into a Bluetooth speaker in the car. And she meant that too.
I did not know that about Amy. And actually, listeners, you can go to episode 46 for my episode with Amy. That just wasn't something that we talked about, but I am going to have to reach out to her too about that, Win. I had no idea. Yeah. And you
learn something new every day.
Absolutely. Okay. So you want to be free of all assistive devices, which is a tremendous goal. What is another goal that you have for, let's say, the next 90 days?
The next 90 days is to become a full-time podcaster and only do podcasting and show people how to do it, because I am in the process. Education and me are not agreeing right now. Let's just put it that way. And I am in the process of slowly but surely stepping away from education.
So stepping away from childhood education, but educating adults on how to start a podcast.
Yes, educating adults on disabilities, because what I've realized is the cute kids get all the treatments in the world. The adults get the fuzzy and the lollipop with cerebral palsy or any disability, quite frankly.
I love that. Well, I don't love the 30-day or the lollipop, but just the fact that you want to help educate adults.
I want to help people learn about disabilities to the best of my abilities.
Phenomenal. Well, Win, you've been totally inspiring to me, and I am sure to the listeners as well. Where can listeners find you online, find your book, find your podcast? What is the best way to get in touch with you?
My book is I-W-I-N, which, yes, that's how you spell my legal name, W-I-N. People spell it wonky all the time. And my website, if you just Google my name, Win Charles, C-H-A-R-L-E-S, everything will pop up about me. And people can find me on Facebook. I hang out more on Twitter than I do on Facebook. And that is Win Kelly Charles. No spaces, and of course the @ sign on Twitter. It's also Win Kelly Charles on Facebook. People can reach out to me if they have any questions about starting a podcast, or they can just search for Butterflies of Wisdom on iHeartRadio or in iTunes, and then they can reach out to me that way and support the podcast that way.
That's all fabulous. And listeners, again, this will be in the show notes, which you can find at thekimsutton.com/PP080. Win, this has been an absolute pleasure. And I'm going to want to bring you back after you take this next step and are teaching people to podcast and further expanding your message, because I definitely believe that your message needs to be heard over and over again.
Yes, it does. And I appreciate your support. I know once we find what we love, which is podcasting, I know that people will understand your story and understand my story. And I'm so grateful and so honored that you brought me on.
Oh, you are very welcome. And thank you for following up with me. Listeners, podcasting is definitely a journey. And sometimes you have struggles. And when you get back on the horse, just grab it, right? And keep on
yes,
going.
Yes, you do.
Yep.
Yes, you do. There are days I have to think, do I really want to get in front of this podcasting mic again? And my last tip is, if you can do it, get a co-host. Get a co-host, because it's easy on you. If you have kids running in the background, you can just mute your mic and take a drink of water and shoo the kids out, or help them before you shoo them out. So that would be my tip, because if you want to start a podcast, you can do it on your own, but the power of two brains is better than one. I've decided.
Love it. I am going to throw in there, though, if you don't get a podcast, at least get an editing team and team to support you in any other way possible.
Yes, right? Yes. I definitely agree. I couldn't do it without my team. And I definitely agree, because once you start a podcast, you're taking on a whole nother job.
Or 3.
Oh, yes, also either one.
Well, thank you.
Jobs.
Thank you so much, Wynn, again, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Hey there, this is Kim Sutton, host of the Positive Productivity Podcast, and I just want to take a quick moment to thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it and were inspired, I would love to hear your feedback. Please take a moment or two and visit the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, or on my website at thekimsutton.com to leave your rating or review. I'd also like to invite you to join the Positive Productivity Book Club and to find out more about my coaching packages by visiting thekimsutton.com. Until the next episode, I hope you have a positive and productive day.